Buonasera a tutti. Stasera penso che abbiamo l'opportunità tutti di godere e di gioire per questa live. Penso che sia un ospite importantissimo. Stasera ho l'opportunità di parlare con John Helliwell, storico componente dei Supertramp, ma non solo. Quindi, come sempre, vi auguro una buona visione. Mi auguro che i sottotitoli partano. E vi ricordo prima di partire di iscrivervi al mio canale se non mi conoscete, e chi invece è già iscritto tenga sempre sott'occhio tutto, perché ci saranno ancora bellissime live. Quindi buona visione e godetevi il tutto. Hi John.
Hello, ciao.
And how are you?
I'm feeling good, thank you. Yes, it's the weather is really nice and hot here in England this week. It usually rains, so it's better that it's sunny.
Okay, like in Italy, there is rain and sun.
Yes,
like England.
Sometimes I come to Italy in August and it's very hot. Too hot for me, but you've got to play music when you can.
Now, John, let's talk about the future and later the past. Can you tell us your new project?
Well, my latest projects. One of them is a quartet with three Dutchmen. Mm-hmm. It's called "Don't Ever Leave Me," and it's an album of ballads, and it's out on streaming. It's out on CD, but it's also out on LP, which is good, vinyl. In fact, I'm just going to show you.
Thank you.
This is a real LP. Don't Ever Leave Me. So it's melodic tunes. I also have another project which is called the Super Big Tramp Band, and that's a jazz big band of 18 people plus me, and we perform Supertramp material exclusively without vocals. Just it's all just instrumental, and that's good. And we have an album ready. It's not out yet. And it was mastered by your friend Maurizio.
Maurizio, I want to thank you because it was very important. Because when I done with him a streaming live, when we say goodbye, he said to me, "Why don't you do a streaming live with the sassofonist of Supertramp?" And I said, for me, it will be a pleasure. So thank you to Maurizio for this streaming.
Yes, good.
And John, let's talk about your beginnings.
Right. Let's go back to 1945 when I was born, and that was in England. And when I was about 9 years old, my parents gave me some piano lessons, which I learned piano for about a year. And then, because I played the recorder at school, then I heard somebody playing clarinet, and I thought that would be nice to play a clarinet. I can play a recorder with my fingers like this, so I thought clarinet might be nice. I heard a musician play a track by Sidney Bechet called Petite Fleur. And I was very taken with this. So I saved my pocket money for 2 years, and I got £15 after 2 years, and I bought my first clarinet when I was 13. And then I started to listen to modern jazz, and I got a saxophone when I was 15. That was much more expensive. That was £35 back then. Okay, and so and then I played music just amateur, of course. After school, I joined a local orchestra, and then I went to be a computer programmer in Birmingham in 1963, and I played in my spare time there. And it was there that I was playing in a group called Jugs O'Henry, and we turned professional. We came and lived in London and turned professional around about 1964. And that was short-lived. And at the end of this period, I reached a crossroads. I thought, well, maybe I'll carry on being a musician. Maybe I'll be a computer programmer. So I applied for 2 jobs, and one was in the music business. One was with a group called the Alan Bown Set. And I also applied for a job with a Swedish computer company. And I got both jobs, and I had to make the decision. So I chose the music and carried on from there. So for the rest of the 60s, I played in this group called the Alan Bown Set, and we made several albums. And then we all tried to leave Alan Bown. It was unfortunate, really. And we formed a new group called Wizard. And we played our first gig in London. And at that same gig, the manager of the group came and took our van away and took all our equipment away. So we were just left with nothing. So then we were on our own. So I did various jobs after that. Working in London in strip clubs and in cabaret clubs. One of the clubs was recommended to me by the bass player Dougie Thomson, who had played in the Alan Bown group for a year or so towards the end of its life. And so I did various jobs. And then I went to Germany to play. I was living in Germany then and playing on American air bases with a really good soul singer called Pete Lancaster. But I was getting a bit fed up of being away from home. So this was 1973 in the summer. And one day when I spoke to my wife, she said, "Oh, Dougie Thomson has called. And would you like to go and have a play with Supertramp, because they're reforming?" They had been around for 3 years then, and so I said yes. I'm a bit fed up with working in Germany now and being away from home, so I came back, and on July the 19th, I went down to a studio and played with Supertramp. They were doing demos and just working out how their new band would gel. They had already got Bob Stiebenberg. They'd found him earlier that year, and they were sort of reforming. And they had agreed amongst themselves to make one last album, one more album. They had made 2 already.
Yes.
They hadn't done too well, but they decided to make another one, and we all got together. And this group of 5 people really seemed to work. There was a magic involved with the music, and that album became Crime of the Century.
Yes.
So yes, and so that's about 50 years ago, and so I've been with Supertramp for a long time.
Because John, Supertramp were not so famous in England because the first 2 albums, Supertramp, The Woman with the Flower, and in the second one, Indelibly Stamped with the Tits, in England, they don't work so much.
No,
I don't know why.
They were not famous, but the music was good. I had met them. I played on the same stages as them, maybe at a university or something. So I knew them just slightly, and they knew me slightly. So, but in the meantime, between when I was doing all the different jobs, Dougie Thomson had joined them, and so there was the connection, which was nice. So
Because
we go ahead.
sorry, the first one, the first album, inside there was a song. Surely it was the first time who I've heard Supertramp, and surely was the classical song of Supertramp mood, like Crime of the Century.
Yeah, it's a good song, surely. Obviously, that version was there, so we didn't do it again. I don't think we ever played that live, but it's appeared on some compilation albums of Supertramp. It's a good song. Yeah, I like it.
And Crime of the Century, 1974, was for you the first album with Supertramp. Can you recall the sessions? Because of Supertramp, I don't know if it is true, there are not so many sessions like the remaster of Breakfast in America. Maybe there is this second album with a live, but Crime of the Century, the new remaster, was alive at the Hammersmith Odeon. But the session, can you recall?
Yes, the sessions were very long and protracted. Before we started recording, we all went to live together in a house in the country, and we rehearsed. Yes. We rehearsed a long time, and we managed to get Ken Scott, the engineer producer, who would
David Bowie.
He'd worked with Bowie, he'd worked with the Beatles, and this was a great move for us because Ken managed to get this kind of hi-fi superb sound that we were interested in. And we went to a studio called Trident in London, and we worked for many weeks, and it was costing the record company a lot of money. And the record company was A&M, and the A and M of A&M, the A was Herb Alpert, and the M was a guy called Jerry Moss. And he came over to London, and he listened to us in the studio, and he went back to the company and said, "Let them continue this music. This music sounds good." So our many sessions in the studio seem to be working, and so we worked on that album for months, and finally made a product which we were very proud of.
Crime of the Century, yes, it was for Supertramp a new beginning, because when my father said to me, when he listened for the first time for the Italian boys, was a huge shock, because Supertramp was a band not so good, because they do the first album, but with Crime of the Century, the first track, School, or my favorite one is If Everyone Was Listening.
Beautiful.
And it is the song of our society now, if everyone was listening, because our society now is like a circus. What is your props? What is your clown? And in 1974, Roger Hodgson and you and the other ones was very beyond.
Yeah, it's a good, and that particularly is a really good song, and I love playing it. I play it with my big band as well, and it's a beautiful tune. And and the album it's kind of a concept album. It works together, and this was important because when we went out doing concerts, we presented the music as a sort of the Crime of the Century. We actually did the first side of the vinyl, of the LP. We performed that, And then we did some other numbers that were going to be recorded in the years to come. And then we finished with the second side. We made kind of a drama of it with a black stage, and so it was a dramatic performance, and it was serious. So,
and I think that John, I don't know if you know, Dreamer, your version in Italy, there is a cover made by
Squadrolina.
From Renato Zero, Squadrina.
Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah, I've heard it.
Sorry for the title. For me, it is a worst one because Dreamer is only for Supertramp. But in 1974, Renato Zero was a huge, important singer in Italy.
Yes, yeah, I've heard it. I have it in my collection somewhere.
Yes, Renato Zero was a good one in the 70s, but I don't like it so much. And return to Crème of the Century. Crème of the Century, for me, if you want to put it down in a genre, is like pop and prog rock.
Yeah.
It's not like prog, because when I've heard, when I heard some people talks about music and in this thing, Supertramps are prog sometimes, maybe in the structure. If I can say that, Full Overture, the last tracks of Even in the Quietest Moments, yes, it is prog, but Crème of the Century, it is a blend of pop rock and prog rock with long songs and short songs, a good balance in a classical album.
Yeah, we at the time we didn't particularly like the word prog rock. We didn't like it, so I invented a new word to describe our music, which was sophisto rock.
Sophisticated rocks, yes.
Sophisto rock, which kind of describes what we did, and we also tried to be not quite as clever as some of the groups, playing different time signatures, changing
odd signature.
We kept it more, as you said, more like pop, but it's a good blend. Sophisto rock seemed to fit it.
Sophisticated rock was a word. Now it is used by critics, but in 1974 there's nowhere so much bands like Supertramp, and another one, Sophisticated, is Steely Dan. Steely Dan was very sophisticated, like Supertramp.
Yes, of course. And a big influence, Steely Dan. Well, we like them. I would say the influences in general for the Supertramp sound would be come from jazz through Rick Davies and myself, and rhythm and blues, and then also from the Beatles and the British scene, particularly through Roger Hodgson. And it was this blend of these different genres which made our sound.
Different personalities inside this band, because if you think about later Crisis, what Crisis for me was a mature part of Supertramp, because if you listen the end of Crème of the Century, Crisis was the natural sequel of this album, because the first track, when you said you heard the man who whistle in the street, na 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 na.
That was me whistling.
You. Wow.
Yes, it's my shoes. You hear my shoes on the on the street. Yeah. They were special shoes that I bought in Oxfam at the shop.
Tip top shoes.
They used to belong to a policeman. They were heavy black leather shoes, which I bought for £1.
And in the background, there is the noise of the workers.
Yes, and then there's a beep beep.
Klaxon, da da, and
Yeah.
later Roger came, na 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 na, and Crisis was mature when Crème of the Century.
Yeah.
And as you said, the drama of the Supertramp, the situation, my favorite song on Crisis, because in every album of Supertramp there is my favorite one, Soapbox Opera. For me, it is a little bit, it is a little classical music. For me, as I imagine, a family inside the living room, because there is the noise of a soapbox in the television. And
Yes.
Roger talks about the mind of every single part of the family, the father, the mother, and the son. And for me, soapbox opera, it is an experiment of classical music, like
Yes.
Queen, like Queen,
Yeah.
like
It's
Queen.
It's an interesting blend of influences. Yes, exactly. And I haven't listened to that track for a long time. And because you have spoken about it, when we finish today, I'm going to go and listen to that.
Soapbox opera, it is a masterpiece. And Crisis, the meaning, poor boy, just a normal day.
Oh, that's good. Poor boy's good.
John,
Yeah.
it is songs about real life, not like prog, because I'm a huge fan of prog, Genesis, King Crimson, and yes, but in 1975, Supertramp talks about real life,
Yes,
straight
that's true.
life, not fantasy or
No.
fairy things.
No, because we had our feet on the ground and not up in the air.
And
Although
the cover,
sometimes we had to pull Roger Hodgson down from the air, pull him down to the ground.
and the cover art of Crisis, it was so beyond about smog, about problems, because
Yes, and the man,
as I can read, it is a classic Photoshop, but made by hand, with the man with the classic umbrella beach on the stage. It was a reminder of your cover.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we always wanted to have interesting covers. We thought it was important, that
logo
Yeah.
of the band.
Yeah, it was good.
Of the band.
Yeah.
And we came in 1977, explosion of punk, but Supertramp don't give a thing, because I think that punks for you were nothing.
Yeah, we came back to the UK. We lived in California when we started. Well, we all the time then. We moved to California in 1975, and then we were living there when we recorded it. And we came back to the UK to mix it and master it. And it was
Scorpio
there
sounds.
Scorpio
Sounds.
Yeah, Scorpio with the giant speakers with Ken Scott, and it was a total crisis there that we didn't know about in California, because California is a fantasy land, and we were living there. But it was really crisis. What crisis when we got
crisis?
back.
What crisis? Even in the quietest moments, was recorded in a good one, Caribou Ranch.
Yes.
Wonderful.
It was good to go out there. We were all, obviously it's up in the mountains, and it was an interesting experience. And we enjoyed it.
And inside this album, there is a song for me, the better ones. Sorry if I choose Roger Hodgson, because I prefer his writing. I don't want to criticize Rick Davies, but if I listen, give a little bit, or Babaji was my favorite one, and
Yes.
your saxophone inside Babaji, it is very different from the songs of Rick Davies. Rick Davies for me was very straight one. I don't
Yeah.
know if it was a strange man, like a lunatic man. No,
No, he's not particularly strange. He is much more down to earth than Roger. Roger was obviously, you see from the titles of the songs, Babaji, for example.
Babaji was a yogi.
Roger's always searching, spiritually searching. But I enjoyed playing, you know, either of their songs. It seemed to it's very easy to play with, and Roger is so melodic.
And Bob was a great drummer. It is a good one because sometimes, John, so many musicians, I am a drummer and I studied drums. Sometimes
Yeah.
when so many people are very attacked by so many drummers or saxophonists, I think that Bob was an underrated drummer.
Yeah.
And for me, Bob was a huge one, a straight one with a straight rhythm.
Very.
And I don't know why Bob.
Yeah, he was good. He didn't overplay, but he kept the rhythm and the beat that he kept was really, really straight, on the money, really good.
And John, what is your Supertramp favorite album? Your favorite?
An album?
Mm.
It would probably have to be Crime of the Century.
Mm.
If I had to choose one.
And later from 1978, there was the tour of Even in the Quietest Moments. And later, Breakfast in America was a huge one.
Yes.
I want to ask you, in 1979, you was prepared to this huge success.
Yes, and we did a very long tour. We toured a long time for that album. Now there's Paris. Yeah, during that tour to promote Breakfast in America, we played in Paris 4 nights at this place, and we recorded it. So a year and a half later, we released the album, the double album called
Paris.
And the tapes that were filmed, we filmed some of it, but the tapes somehow had gone to Australia and they got lost. And so it was many years later that we found the video, the tapes.
In this version, there is the intro with Charlie Chaplin in black and white.
Well,
it is
it
very
was
good.
part of, as part of Fool's Overture, we had various members of the crew dressing up as characters from historical characters. We had Charlie Chaplin, of course, and we had Superman, and we had various other ones. And in the song Asylum, we had a gorilla chasing a banana, and they were both people in the crew doing stuff. It was good visual stuff. So it's all part of that show that we did. Yeah. So Breakfast in America was formed in 1978 and recorded. Again, many sessions in the studio. But we'd been living in California for about 3 or 4 years by then. So it was a sort of reflection of our being in the United States.
English people against the classical American way of life.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's kind of an interesting life. And California is different again. California is different from the rest of the United States. So we're really in a different world there. that was why it was so interesting with Crisis What Crisis to go back to the UK, and the situation was quite bad there with finance and everything. So, but we didn't
politics,
really.
yes.
No, yeah, politics. But so interesting. Yeah, and the rest of the band stayed there. I came back eventually to the UK.
And Breakfast in America, inside this album, there was so much bigger ones. But my favorite one, it is Lord, Is It Mine? Is it a good one? Lord, Is It Mine?
Another Hodgson one, the spiritual. You must be a spiritual man, Matteo.
Yes, I am a little bit spiritual now. But when I was very young, 21, 22, I don't want to be spiritual. Now, yes, because I'm married, I have 2 sons, and sometimes these songs, if I can tell you, as you can see, and as you can said, yes, the spiritual side of Supertramp, like another one inside Breakfast in America, Casual Conversation. It is very good. It is a song not so funny, because I read the text and inside the no communication between man and woman.
Yeah.
It is very, very deep one. It's not like Casual Conversation about love. It's not like this.
Oh no, and that's Rick. And Rick, still more down to earth than much. The song isn't not about seeking any type of religious or spiritual belief.
Very rough one, like Downstream. Downstream is an example of a love song. Strange from Rick Davies, because Rick Davies don't write love songs.
No, not usually. He writes
and Loverboy, what is a thing about gigolo? Loverboy.
Exactly. Yes.
And John, later, when you finished the tour with the Supertramp in 1980 with Paris, 2 years later, before famous last words, 1981 and 1982, Supertramp was on the edge of the success, but in 2 years session, or maybe a rest from the band.
Yes, it was the 1978 and then the 1979 tour was a lot of work, months of work recording, and then months and months of work touring, and we were all a little tired, and we took some time off. And then there were some tensions within the band. There were some tensions between the 2 songwriters, and
Rick and Roger.
Yeah, and they lived in different places. They had a studio. They each had their own studio. And when we were going to start to make the next album, Roger kind of decided that he would probably like to leave. So we said, let's do another album. See what happens. So we made an album, and there were tensions there. When it came time to record in Roger's studio in Northern California, Nevada City,
Nevada.
Rick didn't really want to go up there. And when it came time to record in Rick's studio in Los Angeles, Roger didn't really want to come down and record there. So it was a compromise. And then eventually Roger said, well, he was going to leave. And we said, well, let's do a tour. Let's do a tour. So that was the 1983 tour, which was a sort of farewell to Roger tour. So I think Roger was a little bit frustrated. Because there was a Supertramp album every 2 years, on which Roger had about 4 songs and Rick had about 4 songs.
4 songs, Roger.
But Roger had many songs, 50, written 50 or 60 songs. And it was frustrating for him not to be able to get these out. So anyway, he went solo and had his own career with his own songs.
And anyway, John, famous last words.
Yeah.
It is a good one, because 1983 there was new wave, post-punk, but Supertramp, the classical one, inside his album, it is the classical song. It is raining again. It is a favorite one from my daughter. My daughter.
It's
my
the
daughter.
most. Yeah, I think it's the most pop-oriented tune that we've done, apart from Dreamer. But it's raining again. But it's a good pop song.
But it is a very, very elite pop song, because my daughter, she is 8 years old, and said to me, "Dad, put it down, these songs." Maybe I think that because your saxophone intro, and it is very important to remind.
Yes, I think it is, and it's a good pop song. And your daughter has remarkable musical taste.
Thank you. She's called Ginevra.
Ginevra.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's
that's what we call gin, the drink. Ginevra.
Gin. And inside this album, there's another one, Salebon.
Oh, Salebon. Yeah, which is, it doesn't really mean anything in French. It doesn't have a specific meaning. But
it is a song about the work. It is the work of a man, because it is very sad song about a man who thinks about his life, and it is very sad one, but it is a good one.
Good. Yeah. Well, I quite like that album. Some people think that it is very disjointed, but there's some good sounds on it.
No, it is a good one. My Kind of Lady, Bonnie, Know Who You Are. And on YouTube, I don't know if you know, there is an entire concert in Munich, 1983.
Oh yeah, I've seen bits of it. It was a good tour. We had Joe Cocker on as a support, which was good, and Krista Berg. It was a good show.
But John, when Famous Last Word tour was finished, Roger said to the band that he's gone. Can you remember the leaving of Roger? Can you remember the day of the leaving of Roger?
Yes, because at the very last concert on the tour, and it was in Orange County, California, I presented Roger with a gold watch on stage, which was like, you know, when someone retires from a company, they get a gold watch.
A present.
Yeah.
A present.
Yeah. It was a gesture, a gift, anyway. Yes. But yes, I remember Roger leaving. Yes, of course. Yeah, it was the whole point of that tour. It was a goodbye to Roger, and then we had to make our own way after that, and that was why we seemed to get a bit more serious with Supertramp, with Rick and the other three of us, and we made Brother Way Bound.
Yes, with David Gilmour.
Yeah, that was a good situation, because we were making this track, and we were sitting around, and we said, well, we need a guitar solo. We need someone who can play a bit like David Gilmour. And so I remember saying, well, why don't we just get David Gilmour to play like David Gilmour? So they said,
so you fall?
Yeah, good idea. Yeah. So hello, David. Yes, and it was easy to get him. He came and he got his wonderful sound.
And John, you played on A Momentary Lapse of Reason.
Yeah, subsequent to that, he was working down the road, just either months or a year after that Brother Way Bound album, and that was just going into the studio and playing and leaving. It was very quick. Atmosphere, creating an atmosphere with a saxophone.
And what you think about, John? I don't want to be so silly with this question. Why don't Supertramp made a classical reunion? Why this thing can't be do it?
Impossible situation between the demands of Roger Hodgson and Rick Davis and their respective management people, who happened to be at one time their wives. So Rick Davis is still managed by his wife Sue. She managed the Supertramp band after Roger left, and she manages him still. And Roger at the time in the 80s, he was managed by his wife. He's not now, but it's irreconcilable differences between what the two people want out of music and out of life. And it seems they have spoken, but naturally a complete reunion of the classic Supertramp 5 people. It has to be Rick and Roger have to agree first, and so they can't agree. Too many demands from each side.
It is a pity, because I think that so many fans wait for this. And I think that so many bands can do it, but Supertramp, it is better in my point of view, because a reunion, it will be another celebration of a sad situation. Because if two people don't work together anyway, you can be John, the classical one, who made jokes on the stage, but I think that Roger and Rick was divided.
Yeah, they're too serious. Well, no, they are serious, and the fact of how they was really good for the music in the 70s and early 80s. And then they kind of grew apart a bit, and it didn't work anymore. I'm in an interesting position because I really like to play with both of them, so it's not a problem for me.
And sometimes, John, you stay in touch with Bob or Dougie.
What was your question?
If you can stay in touch, maybe sometimes say hello to Bob or Dougie.
Yes, absolutely. I saw them on Zoom last week.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's good to see them, and and it's a pity, but I don't think that there will ever be now a reunion. It's not impossible, but it's very improbable, I think.
Improbable, yes, improbable.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you this thing: why there are so many bootlegs about Supertramp live? Why they don't get on the market this concert? Because I think that for Supertramp there was Paris and Stop for the live thing. Why so many live from 1975, 1976? They don't come out.
The people have recorded them. Maybe the concerts have been recorded for a radio station or something like that, and then the tapes have been sold or leaked. But the management of the Supertramp now, the name is owned by Rick Davis, and he doesn't seem to want to have anything out officially. An interesting story is that when the film was found of the Paris concert. This was
This
about
one?
10 years. This was about 10 years ago. The film was found, and we found it in England. We got it back to England, and we started working on it. But of the 5 members of Supertramp, Rick didn't want the video to be released. Roger wanted the video released, but made so many demands on what conditions of what he wanted with the packaging and the music, that in the end the video, the DVD is released without really the Rick or Roger agreeing, and because of that they stopped the sale of it in the United States, but the video is of sale around the rest of the world. So it's just unfortunate.
And in your words, I can think about there's no reunion of Supertramp.
I don't think so.
I think about your latest word about this DVD. If there is so many difference, for me is to remember Supertramp was very important in the later days. So now Supertramp, it will be a classical band.
Yeah.
And it is important that you, John, carry on with your project.
Yes, and I'm happy because a lot of the Supertramp tunes and songs I really love, and so we had this idea a few years ago of doing a big band version. It was with some colleagues of mine at the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester, where I went to study when I was 47, 48, when I came back to live in the UK. So it's a nice project. It's good. It's a good tribute to the Supertramp music, and they're different versions. And on my other albums, the album with the quartet, and I made an album with a string quartet too, called Ever Open Door. On both of those albums, I do 2 or 3 Supertramp tunes, different versions of them. So I'm keeping the flame, the Supertramp flame, alive.
And when, John, when you came to Italy? When you come to Italy?
Well, there was a proposal for a jazz tour with the drummer Paul Vertigo, and
Paul Vertigo, the drummer.
Yeah, and my friend Raimondo Mellilupi. We made an album about 4 years ago. We went into a studio in Barry, and it's called the Barry Sessions, and that's the Barry Session, and that's a good recording, and it was just done in one afternoon, just straight takes of 5 different numbers, not Supertramp numbers, of course, but jazz numbers. And so COVID knocked everything back, but I think that we'll get back touring again.
Let me know if you come to Italy, when we can meet.
Yeah, but it'd be good. Where do you live?
I lived in a city near Milan.
Okay. Yeah, I like Milan, and I like Bologna. I like Milan.
Bologna, I will come in the middle of July to see Maurizio. But if you came to my town in Italy, we can meet.
I would like that, yeah, and we can eat some good Italian food and drink some good Italian wine, and I can meet, maybe at some stage I can meet your very musically educated daughter. Yes.
For me, it will be a pleasure to come to a concert. And John,
yes,
it is a pleasure. It is a pleasure to have a chat with you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything.
Yes, it's good. I've enjoyed talking, and we'll continue making music.
Yes, music for me, it is an hobby now.
Good.
Because I don't earn anything about for music. But this channel for me, it is very important, John. And if you want, subscribe to my channel because it will be a pleasure for me.
Good. Okay, and you, good luck with the program, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, I will send you the link of my channel so you can subscribe and put a thumb on the ringing tone because I think that
that's good. So it's ciao Matteo and ciao a tutti.
Thank you John for your time. Saluto tutti dal canale, ci vediamo prossimamente per un'altra diretta. Bye John, ciao a tutti.
Bye-bye.